that won the most points when we voted was forgiveness. And the book is actually called Forgiveness, Making Peace with the Past, which I thought was kind of an interesting spin on forgiveness. And some people, when I mentioned we were doing on forgiveness, they weren't real excited. They were very not excited. No names. It was more than one. But before we get started, a couple things. The sheets are pretty simple on this. There's not a lot of fill in the blank. So we're going to be talking about other things around the topics that come up, like tonight's story. But also, I want to start tonight by just asking you, what is forgiveness? What is forgiveness? What does it mean to you? What does it set off in you? You know, does it do a good thing? Is it an irritating thing? Forgiveness. Yes. Forgiveness. Anybody have a thought, reaction?
Kind of understanding.
Pardon?
Understanding, like understanding where people are coming from or where you're coming from.
Understanding where people are coming from. Sometimes that makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it? You think somebody's doing something because of, and then when you get there, I think it's a whole lot easier to forgive them. I think most of us, if we were honest, we'd say there's some things in our past that we have not gotten to be able to forgive. And as long as that doesn't eat you up, give it a while. Give it a while so you can really forgive. I think that sometimes forgiveness gets to be real cheap too. You know, little kids, when they do something, you say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. They don't have a clue most of the time, and they really don't care if they're sorry or not, you know, but they just have to say that. So before we start on the actual scripture tonight, we're going to do a little, what I think of as a radio play, kind of telling this story, and the script is from a British writer, so it's got some different words. But kind of listen to and see. Now, those of you that have parts, you have your part, and it's circled. Read it nice and loud. There once was an old farmer who had 2 sons. The younger one was fed up with working on the farm.
This is so boring. All I do all day is harvest the crops with the knife. Right now? Ow. Okay. Round up the sheep, yawn, and wash all the mud off the pigs. Yuck.
He didn't want to become a farmer, so he asked for his share of the family wealth.
Dad, this just isn't working. I'd like my part of the family money so I can go to the city and have a real one.
Well, okay, if that's what you want.
The old man was sorry to see his son go, but he gave him his share, waved goodbye. The son dashed off down the road.
Mustn't miss my train. I'm off to the bright lights. London, here I come. I'm gonna be a star.
In the big city, the son spent lots of money on expensive food.
Delicious.
And expensive wine.
Cheers.
And friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I didn't see anybody coming.
Yes, it's radio, you don't see stuff.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, he made lots of friends, or did he? Then he ran out of money, he asked his friends for a loan.
I say, old chap, could you possibly? Sorry. Yes, but I have nowhere to live. Huh. And I'm starving hungry.
Sorry, but I've got another party to go to.
There were not many jobs around, but at last he got a job on a pig farm.
Yuck.
He slept in a cardboard box under a railroad bridge.
Brr, it's cold out here.
Then he had a brilliant idea.
I'll go home. I'll work on Dad's farm. I don't deserve to be his son anymore, so I'll be a servant. Good food and a warm bed under a dry roof.
So he began to walk home.
My feet are killing.
But what about his father? All this time he'd been worrying about his younger son. Then he saw a figure coming walking down the lane. It was his son.
Son, is that you? Can it be you?
I'm sorry, Dad. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry. I want to
Don't worry about that. Welcome home, son.
To his son's surprise, his father threw a party for him.
There's going to be meat pies and Coke and a massive disco, and we'll invite everyone who's anyone. Do you want chocolate cake or fruit or...
His son whom he loved had come home safe and sound, and so his father had forgiven him for foolishly running away. But there were 2 sons, weren't there? Now the elder son was just getting home from a hard day's work in the fields, and he was tired out. But just then he heard a noise.
What's that? It sounds like a party. And there's my brother in the middle of it all. What a cheat. He goes off and spends all the money stupidly and worries Dad half to death. And he gets a party when he comes home?
He was so angry that he went and sulked.
Son, I know you feel like this, but you see, I love you both the same. I had lost your brother, and now he has come home to me.
The elder son still sulked, although I think he stuck down later to get a piece of cake. Now that was kind of silly, but it's a different telling of the story that we're so familiar with. And I came up with so many questions myself, even though I've studied and taught and preached on this story so many times. I want us to look at the scripture itself in Luke chapter 15, verses 11 to 32. And I'm not reading all this all the time, folks, so how about someone read 11 through 16?
Father. Then Jesus said there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in desolate living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs.
One more.
He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him any.
When he came back to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have food to spare, and here I'm starving to death. I'll set out, go back to my father, and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men. So he got up and went to the father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Someone like to read 21 through 26?
The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate.
While the older son was in the field, when he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called on one of the servants and asked, what's going on? Your brother has come and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has it back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him. My son, the father said, You're always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. You've all heard this story before, right? What bothers you in the story? Anything?
Okay, so when he comes back, and his father eventually dies, then what? The young son's already spent it. And so if I was the older brother, I'd be furious because I'd be like, no, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna.
And this is another one of those cool stories stories in the Bible, we don't know the next chapter.
Yeah.
I've often wondered that too. I've often wondered why the Father gave it to him. Because if you look at in perspective of how things were done in this day, you know, first of all, most of his inheritance would have been property, because that's what passed from one to the other. And the younger son was like nobody, kind of like Prince Andrew compared to Prince Charles. You know, there's no connection there. And also in this too, sons didn't talk to their fathers like the older son did. It didn't matter how old you were. Some of you grew up in families like that. If you back talked your mom or your daddy even today, if they were still here, it could be a problem. So there's things like that. But there's also some really interesting characters in this. Look at the first question. Based on what you've read and on your own experience, how would you describe the younger son's feelings when he first left his father's home?
He was free.
He was free.
He had money.
He had money. He also had nobody watching him. Now, some of you can relate to this. Remember when you left for your first job or to go to college? That Sunday school teacher wasn't going to be down the street from you. Mom and Daddy weren't going to be there. Now, maybe not everybody went a little crazy, but okay. How do you think he felt when he was living in a distant land? Okay, he may have been lonely, especially toward the end. I think at first he probably was just party, just enjoying it. You know how everybody will be your friend when you got. And then it comes to the feeding the pigs, which all of us I think could go yuck to. But for a Jewish man, which we assume in this story, for a Jewish boy to be sent out to feed the pigs, you just didn't do that. You didn't get near the field that the pigs were in, much less feeding. So how do you think he felt then?
Like you probably doing something bad, I don't know.
Could have been he was doing something bad. You know how that Sunday school teacher comes back in your mind sometimes? He could have felt bad. He could have been embarrassed. Who knows? He may have been working on the farm for one of the guys he'd been out partying with. And then when he saw his father running to him, before we answer that one, at this time, and for many years before and after, in Israel, men did not run. You didn't run because there was nothing that important that you had to run for. You'd send somebody else to run for it. So how do you think he felt when he looked up and saw his dad running to him?
Shocked.
Shocked?
Humble.
He may have wondered, what is going on? What is going on? Because my experience, sometimes when people do help you or forgive you, it's not the ones you think will do it. It's not always the one you think will step up. Do any of the stages in the younger son's journey parallel steps in your life? You don't have to give specifics, but has anybody kind of stepped away from the way they were raised? Spent some time elsewhere and then come back to the fold, if you will. I see some hands going. I get kind of embarrassed because I've got some friends and they talk about all their wild younger days. And I didn't have a lot of wild younger days. I got up and I went to Baptist colleges and I taught in Christian schools. I didn't do anything perfect, but I just didn't do all the partying and stuff. But I had that period of 3 years of my life before I found MCC when I probably wasted too much money. I wasted too much imbibing. I wasted too much time. So it was a short time with this. But most of us, I think when we get to this stage in our life, there have been some times we've gone off track. Do you think the father was wise in giving the younger son his part of the inheritance early? How many say no, he wasn't wise? How many say yes? How many don't care? Why did he do that?
Taught him a very valuable lesson he wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Okay. Taught him a very valuable lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking if the dad realized that was going to happen. else did he do it? Okay, if you're not the oldest child in your family, somebody's the baby, right? And whether that baby is 6 years old or 50 years old, they're still the baby. So I think some of it is he was just being indulgent to the younger kid. Now, I don't think this gentleman walked up to his dad and said, "Now, Dad, I want my part of the inheritance. I'm leaving, and I'm going to take what's mine and go." I don't think that happened. I heard a lot of whining. I heard a lot of griping and growling. A little bit of guilting. Look, I'm the younger son. I'm never going to have anything. At least you can give me some money. Let me go off now.
Give it to him to shut him up.
Yeah.
May have given it to him to shut him up. You know, you begin to choose your battles. And those of you that are parents, you know what I'm talking about. And we don't really know if this was a real story or if it was a parable Jesus was teaching. But I'm sure this kind of thing happened in a lot of families then and now. Then and now.
If he squandered everything that was rightfully his, and then he couldn't come back, then when his father died, was he going to expect more?
Well, that's what Wendy was asking. You know, I can't. I would not want to be the executor of that estate. You know, I can imagine when that time came, assuming the older brother never had a change of heart. I think it could have been a touchy situation. Maybe he gave him the pig farm. Another interesting question. Why did the father stay at home and wait for the son's return instead of going to find him?
He had to let him make his own mistakes without him pulling him out of the ditch again.
Yeah.
Let him make his own mistakes, make his bed, lie in it. Why else?
He had an estate to run.
Pardon?
He had an estate to
He had
run.
a stage to run.
He trusted God that would bring him home.
See? The other thing, when you look at how things were in that day, people didn't travel. The average person seldom went more than 10 miles from their home. And that was to whatever the next biggest town was in case they needed something. People just didn't pick up and go off like this young man. And so I think there may have been a part of that where the father wasn't comfortable leaving his estate and going off looking for him. Possibly the father also knew where he was going and what he'd be doing. And he didn't want to find his son there. Denial is always an interesting adventure. But he didn't go. He waited. Now, I think the interesting about that question is, or that statement was, he waited. We get the impression, and you know, most of Israel, where Jesus lived, was pretty flat. And you could see a long ways. And there weren't a lot of people traveling because they didn't go more than 10 miles from their house generally. I have this vision of the father, and not every day, most days, going out to the porch and hopefully praying for his son, thinking about his son and watching. I think I've told you this story before a long time ago. During World War II, my grandmother had like 4 sons and 5 sons-in-law fighting. And she lived in Christiansburg there near the railroad tracks. And you could look out and see the trains go by. And she came in from the sink where she'd been watching the train, and she told my grandfather, "You better go down to the train station." I said, "Why?" She says, "Bob was on that train." And he said, "Annie, you just saw a tall, good-looking soldier and you thought it was your son." "No, I saw it." My grandfather just kept on. He wouldn't. Next thing he knew, there was the door. And they walked over to the door, and who was standing there? Bob. So I visioned this father watching for him, hoping, anticipating. What other ways could the father have responded to the returning son?
Well, he could have been mad that he was left and he left. And been very rough
refused to even have him as a servant. Picture this now, the guy's going off to the city. He's got all this money. You know he's not dressed in raggedy clothes. He's dressed really fine. Now he's coming back and he's been living with pigs. Or in a little place, sleeping under the bridge. I don't think he came back in the finery he left. Yeah. So the father could have just been, oh my gosh, no way. What else could he have done? I'm surprised he didn't ask more questions. Or at least in what we had, didn't ask more questions. I don't think I would be fine with just saying, oh, I'm so glad you're back. Let's put a new ring on your hand so you'll truly be part of the family. Let's get you some clean clothes and let's have a party. I think I'd be more to start out with, where have you been and what have you done? And in today's world, do I need to get you tested? You know, where have you been and what have you done? But I'm overwhelmed with the love of this father who just welcomes them back. And again, we don't know the whole story. Could have been a lot more to it than this. Using the father's welcome of the runaway son as his pattern, what would you tell somebody about God's response when we turn to God or turn back to God? Because you know, that's the father, this is not Joe Smith. We're going to say Pat.
No matter how bad we screw up, he's still waiting.
Yeah.
He's got his arms open and said, come on, come on home.
Come on home. Because the point of the story was to show the people that Jesus was teaching, who had, many of them had gone off even from their Jewish roots, showing them that when we come back to God, there are those open arms and that welcoming. How do many people see that though? Is that what most people think if they screw up, if you will, and then turn back to God? What have a lot of people been taught about that? God's going to get you. You know, remember Ziggy, the cartoon character Ziggy? He used to have a card that had his God's thumb right down top of Ziggy's head, you know? And I think too few of us have been told this story or explained this story. And too few of us have seen that happen. Because we often think of God and put it in connection to the church. Think about that a minute. Somebody goes off, they've been part of the church, whether a young person, old person, they've been really involved. They massively mess up. Maybe spend time in jail and come back. What's the welcome? In some cases. I think most people would stand away a little bit. Some of you knew Jeff Fireball. He went here a long time ago. And he met somebody online. This was back when that was a pretty new thing. And Jeff decided the heart of his heart was in St. Louis, Missouri. Y'all remember this story?
Yes.
And he had to go to St. Louis because this man, he had to go be with this man. And everybody kept coming to me as pastor saying, you tell him he can't go. You tell him he can't go. It's like, okay, it's R-E-D, not G-O-D, okay? You tell him he can't go. And what I said is I'm going to tell him that if he needs to come back, he has a place to come to. Well, of course, Jeff packs everything up, and Mark and some of them take him out there, and he stays not even 6 weeks, I don't think. They get a phone call. You come back and get him. And I talked to him because he was really embarrassed to come back to church. But what he found when he came back, because I talked to everybody too, what he found when he came back is that people still love him, they still want him. But many of us have not experienced that. I don't mean taking off to St. Louis, but many of us have not experienced that, being able to come back and be forgiven, be welcomed. I was in Charlotte one Sunday and I got a phone call from somebody here, and I'm honest with you, I don't remember who it was. And the first thing they said was, guess who was in church today? I don't know who. And they told me, it was somebody that left in a sit. And I said, what'd you do? He said, I went over and hugged him and said I was glad to see him. Because that's what you told us we should do. But again, we need to pattern this. It's one thing to read it, the story. It's one thing to kind of know God doesn't. But most people need to see that they can. Now, there's a difference between welcome somebody back, give them the keys to the kingdom, and put them in charge of everything. Or welcome them back to the fellowship. What do you think the younger son's attitude and behavior toward the father was after his return?
Shock.
Shocked.
I bet he wasn't as whiny.
Not as whiny.
Gratitude.
Grateful.
Yeah.
Grateful. What'd you say, Wendy?
Gratitude.
Gratitude. I've often wondered, like I said, I've studied this story so many times, I've often wondered if he was afraid the father one day was going to say, you have really disappointed me. Go back to the pigs. Or if he worried that the father would hold that over his head. Because unless the older son changed his attitude, that was an uncomfortable situation. I hope it would be gratitude. I hope he would do the best he could to do whatever he needed to do there with the family. So the question then is, how does this affect our motivation to be obedient to God? I'm not going to ask you because most of you probably don't want to share anything. What's the biggest thing you've had to ask God's forgiveness for? What's the biggest thing? And did you or do you feel forgiven of it? And does that change how much you appreciate, love, or follow God? Follow Jesus. Sometimes it's hard to appreciate this if you've never been beholden to someone, if you've never disappointed someone. For folks our age, folks, that's not really the case very often. We've all been disappointed or been a disappointment. What do you find in the older brother's response that is reasonable and understandable? Did he have a right to act like he did? Why?
I think he felt betrayed.
Felt betrayed by
Daddy.
what else?
He had worked so hard all those years and didn't get what his brother's getting.
I often wonder, had he really not ever had a good time? Had he ever really asked for it and had a party? But in his mind, you know how we get that all or nothing mentality? You never. And I love it because like, we did on this and this and this. But the older son, and I'm really sad that the story ended here. To me, that's one of the hallmarks of the Bible is not written by somebody who wants to make it all pretty and nice. Because we don't know the next response. We don't know the next question.
But in here it says, so he divided his property between them. So he didn't give the older son his share at that time.
Well, we don't have any indication he did because the guy stayed there.
Yeah.
And again, we go back to this other question: what happens when the dad dies? Does he only get half of what's come in since he came back? And again, remember, most people didn't have money that much to deal with. The main thing people in Israel at this time had as part of their inheritance was the dirt, the ground, and that was sacred. So I don't know if the boy had to sell some and give this guy his money to go off and party with. But yeah, he divided them. And again, just like in some countries today, when the father dies, the family dies, it's not divided 50-50. Some of you may have been involved in inheritance issues like that. And but he said he divided it. Again, that was so unusual. So unusual. And another reason for the older son to be jealous. That's what it's all about. To be jealous. Man, I thought it was going to be a 2/3, 1/3. Now I'm gonna get half of a half. With which brother do you identify? And I probably need to add that a little bit at various times in your life.
That's what I was gonna say. At what time are we
Look
talking
at
about?
Mo blushing.
Sunburn.
You know, have you ever been the younger brother? I want mine. I'm gonna go off and party, family do bad. Go off and be a wild child.
If I wanted to be wild child, go off and party, I had to earn my own money. We did have a baby in our family, and she still thinks she's the baby.
Yeah, I can understand that too.
Yes.
And then there may have been times when someone has been forgiven or things have been restored, whether it's in our family, our workplace, or church. And you think, well, I've been here all this time doing all this stuff, and they waltz back in and everything's fine. I know some of you have said that because I've heard you say it. So we come back to what might God say to us based on the father's response to the two brothers. How did the father respond to the older brother? The older brother became angry, but his father said, look, all these years, he said, the son says, all these years I've been working on blah, blah, blah. And he says, this son of yours, did you hear that? Did you hear the little sigh in that son of yours? And the father says, my son, you're always with me. Everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours, the older brother tried to block him off completely. The dad said, this brother of yours. So how did the father react to the older brother? Did he fuss at him? Did he say, get over it, stop being such a crybaby yourself? I think he showed him what place he had in the father's heart also. And I think he tried to help him understand forgiveness in this. How might one of us reacted if the older son had said something like that? Or what ways, let me rephrase that. What way could the father have responded to the older son saying that? Different. He could have said, you know, I'm over you. You go on, I'll give it all to the other guy. He could have said, and you've been living in my property, and you've been eating my food, and did you hear the tenderness of what he says? You're my son, and you're always going to be my son. I'm not sure all of us realize that God says that to us. You're my son, you're my daughter, and you're always going to be. Always going to be. To me, the real thing from this lesson tonight is helping us see how much forgiveness and how much love God has for us. To see how much we need to share that with other people. There are people who think God hates them because they've been told that. There are people who think, you don't know what I've done, God couldn't love me. People come to talk to me sometimes, they get this look. It's like, I don't want to embarrass you and tell you. And I finally got to the point, I said, you know, after all these years at MCC ministry, you're not going to shock me. Sometimes I do so. But you're not going to shock me. Because people have been taught that when you're bad, you're thrown away. When you're bad, people are done with you. But this story says that God never throws us away. Thoughts, comments about that? Is that reassuring for you? Is it irritating? Do you believe it? You don't have to say yes or no. Because even after all this, some are still thinking, maybe not about ourselves, but you don't know what so-and-so did. And I can't believe God can love them. When people bring that kind of thing up to me, or I think it myself, I go back to that thing that God gets to make the final choices. It's not up to me to say if A, B, or C is going to heaven. It's not up to me to say if A, B, or C has lived right. It's not my role to judge. Anything else?
I try to look at it like if I can't forgive someone, how can I expect God to forgive me? But I do have a couple people I still have issues with, so I ain't quite made it yet.
Still working on a couple of things.
Yes.
And that, that's so legitimate because none of us are Pollyanna enough to think, oh, you hurt my feelings. You stole from me. I'll let you back forgive you. It doesn't always work that easily. But if we do keep in mind that God has forgiven us everything, and we need to at least keep working on those issues.
It's a slow process.
Yeah. And it's not always appreciated. You ever apologize to somebody that didn't help them at all? They're still mad at you? They're still upset with you? And again, all we can do is clear this and do what we can to clear this. Paul says, as much as it's up to you, live at peace with everyone. And I'm glad he phrased it that way because I can do all I think I should and could and try, and the other person may still be upset. For the lesson next week, and I got the sheets in the office I have to go get, is why do we need forgiveness? Or do we need forgiveness? I know one person said, I don't need to ask God's forgiveness. I've never done anything to need forgiveness. I moved away because I was afraid lightning.